Okay, well, now that we have started getting some people in, welcome to today's webinar. It's Youth in Action Using Community Science to #Monitor Water. My name is Faith Blackall. I'm going to be the Water Challenge Ambassador at EarthEcho today that will be hosting and moderating today's events. So excited to be alongside our partners, scientists in every Florida school. Thank you guys for joining. So at EarthEcho, EarthEcho International envisions a world where every individual from any background and any experience can use tools to cultivate a healthy and thriving environment for education. And we use education as a main way to do this. To that end, our mission is to build global youth movements to protect and restore our oceans and this beautiful planet that we all share. So, Scientists in Every Florida School is a free program aimed at building a long-term collaborative relationship between teachers and scientists to better integrate current scientific research and big data into classroom lessons. We encourage you to visit their website and check out all programs and opportunities available, including how to request scientific visits to your Florida classrooms. So I'd like to encourage you guys to please use the Q&A feature and ask us all questions that you may have during the Zoom, and it is being recorded and posted on our YouTube channel at a later date. So, like I said, I am going to be your host and moderator today. My name is Faith Blackall. I'm a Water Challenge Ambassador with EarthEcho International, and as a part of this incredible role that I am honored to get to have, we get to host events and create educational opportunities to reach classrooms and do all sorts of fun programs and host different events such as beach cleanups and in-person and virtual talks. We also get to monitor water every single month, and we go out and we collect samples, we test pH, water oxygen, turbidity, and all sorts of fun and important things to get to learn about the health of our bodies of water, specifically for me here in Florida. I am a homeschool student. So please, and with that, I think that's about it. We can start getting started. So a little bit of an introduction into EarthEcho's Water Challenge. They are a global citizen science program that empowers the youth of today's generation to monitor local water qualities. We share findings on a global database. We protect our planet's water, and it starts in their own communities. So we definitely encourage this for participants to monitor their own water in communities, and just to really get to collaborate together with one another of people with like-minded interests and like-minded passions, and get to collaborate. So now I get the honor today of getting to introduce our guest speaker, which is Audrey Goeckner. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, I am so excited to be here. I think we have a lot of participants, and so I think this is like the largest audience that I've ever got to speak with. So like Faith said, my name is Audrey Goeckner. I'm a PhD student at the University of Florida, which is in Gainesville. If you don't know where that is, it's about like north central Florida. And I do research on water quality in urban areas. And so I'm going to be talking to you guys about that today.
We are so excited to have you today, Audrey. And like she said, we'll be talking about the importance of monitoring your local bodies of water. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right, just give me a second to share my screen. All right, can everyone see that? All right. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about freshwater in urban landscapes, which might sound kind of weird to some of you. So when I say urban landscape, I'm just talking about developed or built areas where a lot of people frequent. So that can be a neighborhood. So here, let me get my laser pointer. Can you see people living around this pond? I'm talking about shopping centers, towns, cities, areas that your school might be in. And so here is an example in this photo of an urban freshwater body. It's a stormwater pond or or just a pond. And then I do research on basically what's going on in that water. I think a lot of people don't typically think about what's going on in the ponds that we live by or walk by, but they're quite interesting. So I want to talk about freshwater in Florida in general really quick. So when people think about Florida, I think they usually think about beaches and marine life, and I don't blame them, right? Because I mean, look at us, we're surrounded by seawater. But we have so many freshwater ecosystems, and freshwater ecosystems include wetlands, lakes, ponds, streams, rivers, and springs. Florida is very well known for our springs. We have an estimated 30,000 lakes. That's a lot of lakes. If you look at this map here, that's all these dark circles and weird shapes that you can see. I highly encourage you to hop on Google Maps and take a look at what kind of water body that you might be by. Here's Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee is one of the largest lakes in the United States. And we also have about 12,000 miles of streams, rivers, and canals. So here you can see the Peace River. Up here is the St. John's that you can at least see on this map. And freshwater is really important for so many different reasons. Some examples would be like drinking water. Our freshwater ecosystems provide for us, at least in Tampa. I don't know if I said this already, but I'm a Florida native. And I grew up in Tampa Bay. And in Tampa, one of our drinking water sources is the Alafaya River. But it also serves as recreation. We can have a lot of fun on these water bodies. We go fishing, swimming, kayaking. And they serve as homes or shelters for all walks of life, like microbes or fish, birds, alligators, you name it. And even though freshwater inland is very different than seawater or the water that you see at the beach, it's important to recognize that water inland eventually can make its way to the oceans. And so it's important to look at what's going on in those water bodies, especially water bodies in urban areas. Right, so all water is connected. And I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by that using an example in an urban area. So we're going to start with precipitation or rainfall. And in urban areas, here's what looks like a shopping center. When you get enough rainfall, you're going to generate surface runoff, right? That water is going to move and it's got to go somewhere. And so this runoff is picking up all this crazy stuff that you can find in urban areas, and it's going to go down drains and in gutters. And that can end up in stormwater ponds, or this pond here. And when this pond fills up, it's going to fill. And then that water has to go somewhere else. So it might go down this drain here, and it might move into the next local water body, which here I'm showing a stream that's in an urban area. Here's like a road that's moving over it. And that stream is going to carry that water, and that stream is going to become a river. And then that river is eventually going to make its way to the ocean, right? Because all rivers meet the ocean. And so what do I do and how do I fit into this story? Well, I kind of fit over here. I work with urban runoff, and I work with stormwater ponds and a little bit in some urban streams. And so what I study is referred to as limnology. So limnology, I think maybe most of you might not have heard of, but that would make me a limnologist. And limnology is the study of biological, chemical, and physical properties of lakes and other freshwater bodies. And so I said I work in ponds, and ponds are just teeny tiny lakes. And so what are these properties that I'm talking about? So I've got some examples to show you with this little pond I have here. So examples of biological properties include plants in the pond, around a pond, some algae. We've got fish and aquatic bugs. I'm not really into bugs, but somebody that works in my lab, I didn't mention this, but I'm in my lab right now, and somebody else that works in here works with bugs, and so he's always got bugs on the counters. and birds. So in this type of property, I work with algae and I work with microbes. So microbes are teeny, teeny, tiny, and you would not be able to see them with your eye. Examples of chemical properties might be some things that you guys are all measuring with your kids. So one thing I work with is dissolved gases that are in the water. And oxygen is one of them, right? So oxygen that's there either because of plants, because of algae, or just because the atmosphere is mixing that gas into the water. Oxygen is really important when you're looking at ecosystem health. Another chemical property could be nutrients. Nutrients you can't see, but dissolved nutrients is important for plants and algae to grow. pH, an indicator of how acidic or basic your water is, and that's important because some organisms, like some algae or some fish, can only live within a certain range of pH. And other chemicals include natural chemicals that should be there, or chemicals that might not supposed to be there, like pollutants, for example. And examples of physical properties include water clarity. So how clear the water is. I think something that you guys are using to look at this is turbidity. Another example is light penetration. How far into the water column can light make it? You know, if you have some plants that are living near the bottom, but your water becomes very turbid or it's no longer clear, then that sunlight might not be able to make it down there, and that could be a problem for those plants. And finally, temperature. Temperature plays a big role in how active plants or fish or algae can be. How fast can they grow? So I do a little bit of work on all of these things. These are very important to look at when you want to know, is an ecosystem healthy? Are animals and plants and fish happy? Do they like how much oxygen is in there? These are really good water quality indicators.
And Audrey, I'm going to jump in for a quick second. We had a really good question in the chat. Somebody asked, what is the most important body of water in Florida that we have to protect?
Ooh, that we have to protect.
Big question.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of me wants to say that no one is more important than the other, but I would say that we have, I mentioned earlier that Florida is very well known for springs. And springs they can become very impaired when they have a lot of nutrients or chemical pollutants. And so those are very important for drinking water and also just for recreation and for wildlife. So I would say that our springs, but we also have a lot of great lakes that are important to protect, like Lake Okeechobee. If you're familiar with Lake Okeechobee, it is not in good shape right now. There's a lot of algae in Lake Okeechobee because of very long history of nutrient pollution. So that is a little bit hard to answer. I hope that helped.
And guys, please remember to feel free to drop any questions in our Q&A feature that we will answer throughout.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. So where was I? Oh, yeah, so here are just some pictures of some recent fieldwork days of us collecting samples for some of the same stuff that you guys are measuring with your water kits. This is an older photo, but in this picture I collected sediment from ponds to look at the organic stuff that is stored in the sediment. Right here, my friend Annabelle is using what's called a Secchi disc, and you lower that into the water column until you can't see the white stripes anymore. And so that tells you how clear the water is. And so if you have very turbid water, then you're not going to be able to see that very well. And I believe you guys are using strips to measure oxygen. Is that right? Yeah, so we use sensors instead. So this technology that uses a light that can tell you how much oxygen is in the water. So that's what Annabelle's holding here. And here are various ways that we're collecting water samples to look at nutrients and chemicals and dissolved gases. And here's a picture of me. I had to get in this pond. Sometimes you have to get a little dirty to do this work, which I usually don't mind, but I wasn't particularly excited about getting in this pond. But what I'm holding is a different type of oxygen sensor. And so just a summary of what I do is I look at how elements and chemicals change in ponds. And so sometimes that's done by bacteria, sometimes it's done by algae. I look at how gas is produced, and I look at how water quality influences algal growth and microbes, and how algae and microbes influence water quality. It goes both ways. So I just want to end this off by saying that say why it is important to look at waters in our urban areas. So I said earlier that sometimes crazy stuff can wash off urban landscapes, right? So we have sediments and organic matter like plants and grass clippings, stuff from vehicles or chemicals that we apply on the land. And all of that can get flushed into a pond, ponds that we all are familiar with, that we might live by. And what all that stuff represents is algal food for algae, food for bacteria, or could be pollutants sometimes. And so if this gets a little out of hand, you can see some problems like this photo. This is a photo of a pond that has a lot of algae in it. And not all algae is bad. Sometimes algae is good to have in the environment, in the ecosystem. But when it gets too much, when it blooms, like what's going on here, that's not what we want to see. This can be bad for human health and for the health of fish or other things that live in that water. If you get a lot of sediments, like dirt and stuff, this can happen. This would be considered very turbid water, not clear water. If you looked at the oxygen in here, you might not see very much oxygen at all. So this is not very good for fish and for plants. So it's important to look at what's going on in these ponds for human health, for wildlife. And so earlier I said water flows downstream, right? So we don't want to see bad stuff like this type of water or this algal infested water move downstream. So I think I talked about quite a bit there. So thank you for listening. I don't just work in urban ponds. I also get to work in some natural ponds and natural lakes. So it's really interesting to see how different one is from another. This is on the right here is an urban pond with some algal mats that were so thick that this bird was able to walk across the water on the algae. I thought that was really funny. Yeah, I think my contact information is shared in this presentation later on. So I highly encourage you all to ask questions or contact me. Oh, there it is.
Yes, she has definitely provided 2 different sources that you can contact her with any questions you guys might think of later. Thank you so much for that, Audrey. And of course. And now from scientists in every Florida school and EarthEcho International, when we teamed up for a teacher workshop today, and we have one of those educators to tell us that what they have learned in doing in their classroom. So please welcome Mrs. Lassinger. How are you guys doing today?
We're great. I've got my 6th grade class. You guys want to say hi? Here. And we're really excited to share with you how we've incorporated the water challenge. I got a great opportunity. We're actually up in Virginia. I grew up in Florida, so because it was COVID, I was able to join in this wonderful workshop this summer. And so we got invited to the webinar to share some of the things that we do. So we divided it up into 3 sections. And the students are they've written scripts to kind of share with teachers and people on the webinar what we do in our classrooms to maybe give you some ideas. So we've divided up into real world wonders, community collaboration, so working with scientists and community, and then also voices for action. So I'm going to turn it over to the real world wonders first. We've got Lila, Hazel, Madeline, and Nora.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Would you like to go ahead and get started?
All right. Hi, I'm Nora. Miss Lastinger has been doing Forest Fridays with her class for 6 years. Rain or shine, cold or hot, students have been booting up and heading outside with their field notebooks to observe nature. Students always enjoy going outside and into the woods and learning about their environment. Forest Fridays have been a highlight of most students' days, and I have always loved exploring the creek and finding fish swimming in the water. It's a great way for students to get out of the classroom and into nature, and it's easy to do at any school, even if you don't have woods. All you have to do is go outside. As we sit outside and observe the system, many wonder questions start to come out. This leads to exploration and discovery.
Hi, I'm Lila. Is our creek healthy? We wondered this, and so began our lessons on chemistry and testing the creek water. We test for pH, nitrates, phosphates, dissolved oxygen, and temperature. We test the water after rains, over seasonal changes here in Virginia, and if we see suspicious sediments in our creek. The water testing shows us that our creek is quite healthy, and once we do it once, it is very easy to repeat. We even love teaching the younger grades how to test our water and our creeks on the Earth Day celebration. If you do not have a creek near your school, we have even tested our tap water. This can be a bit scary as you wait for the results, especially if you do an E. coli test. It is also interesting to compare different types of water. We have tested our creek and compared it to larger, more protected bodies of water.
I'm Madeline. One great thing about being outside is there is always something unknown to figure out. In our creek, we found odd orange and silver oils in our water. At first, we thought it was unnatural oil, pollution of some sort, and we were concerned for the health of our creek. So we called out a scientist. The scientist informed us that it was in fact an iron oxidizing bacteria in the soil, and the natural oil was perfectly fine for our creek to have. He taught us that if the oil cracks, it's natural, but if it swirls back together, it's not.
Hi, I'm Hazel. The school has placed trail cams in the woods to observe wildlife in our creeks and wood system. Students greatly enjoy looking at the trail cam and discovering the animals that have been in our woods and creeks. This is a fun way to actually see the critters that run and hide when a mob of kids comes into their space. The visitors to our creek include deer, raccoons, feral cats, mice, rats, green herons, hawks, foxes, freshwater eels, snakes, vultures, and many other kinds of birds. We even found some birds bathing in the creek. If you don't have a creek, you can still find plenty of animals, especially birds and squirrels. We highly recommend investing in a trail camera if you want to catalog the food of your school. Now we're going to pass the presentation over to Lila, Amelia, and Jasper to talk about community collaboration and action. Next slide, please.
Thanks, guys. Hi.
Hello, I'm Jasper. So we're talking about riparian zones, and another way we can help our water quality is helping riparian zones. So we learned about riparian zones, and we found out that it's not very healthy where we live. So we decided to act on what happened, and we partnered with our local river keepers, the Ivana Conservation Alliance, to work on our damaged riparian zone. So we got a grant for that, and we planted ferns and spice bush, which are also natives, which is very important. You don't want to go around planting stuff that isn't native, or else that can also damage your ecosystem, even with the right intentions. So and it was good for these plants because in Virginia we have kind of sloped banks, so it's easier for sediment to get washed off from
rain and into our creeks, which brings down the water. So we also had rocks to kind of keep that in too, so it would keep from the soil eroding into the banks. And we also had stay off the path signs and stop signs to keep people off of these areas, so they wouldn't keep stepping on them and causing more sediment onto the water. We also did a macroinvertebrates survey with the help of our community natural naturalist as another way to assess our creek health. So this is also a really fun way to test to see how to see like different animals and see that as like a different way of looking at how healthy your creek is just because of the animals. And we also compared this small creek to a larger, more protected river in our area called the Rivanna.
Hi. As discussed earlier, in 4th grade, the students go to the woods every Friday, rain or shine, and learn about how the systems work. They look at how healthy our creek is through chemical testing, study the habitats and behaviors of animals, study the trees and plants, look at riparian zones, and look at changes of the woods through different seasons and weather. When they move up to 5th grade, everybody chooses a topic of their interest or a question to study over the course of that semester. They research and use a scientific method to come up with a conclusion or a big answer to their question. This brings us to Earth Day. Many students work in pairs or groups and teach other kids in the school about their project and what they discovered, usually by using games and or activities. Some examples of what students choose are erosion control, the power of insects, short walks, animal scavenger hunts, or the importance of recycling. Earth Day projects allow students to get hands-on with something that they are passionate about and then teach it to others. It's a fun learning experience for the viewers and presenters. During the day-long Earth Day celebration at school, we also invite scientists or green companies to come and share their knowledge with us as well. It's a great community event that unites our school in a celebration of the Earth. Now we'll enter our presentation with the final group, Nyan, Lisa, and Bo, who will speak about how we've empowered our voices to call for a change in our Earth. Next slide, please.
Thank you guys so much. And as we switch to the next group, if I can get you guys to talk just a little bit louder so we can hear just a little bit better, that would be great.
So as we learn about how humans are impacting the water systems, land systems, and our atmosphere, it makes us want to do something about it. So part of our classroom experience is we work to use our voices for change. Some of the things that we do are sending weekly messages out to our parents and students, informing them about what is going on and telling them what actions they can take to help make a difference. Each month is a different theme, and we offer a weekly challenge that families can do to help stop the problem. For example, December is our ocean month. We have made videos and written letters supporting 30 by 30 to senators and representatives. Before COVID, we went to Richmond and participated in Lobby Day as well. It was a powerful experience to talk to the actual lawmakers and voice the change we wanted to see. One year, students made posters campaigning to educate about plastic use and how it is impacting our oceans. The 5th graders designed the poster with a local nature center grant initiative. Students from all different schools presented this poster to our city and advocated for less plastic use. We've also participated in climate strikes. We made posters with messages that we believe are important and walked up the road to raise awareness. We just recently did one to push support for the Build Back Better Act. Finally, Nyan and Bo will share one last idea with you to close us out.
One of my friends and my favorite ways to express our voice for change is through A Greener Earth. A Greener Earth is a website and YouTube channel created by us. To us, it's our favorite way to engage and learn about topics that are intriguing to us.
The Greener Earth website is a grade-wide project where we cover different topics that are relevant and significant in our world today. Could the slide presenter please click on the link? Oh, thank you. One of the topics on the website is water pollution and water quality. This section covers anything from river pollution to how to clean up bodies of waters.
Greener Earth also has a YouTube channel linked in the website. On this channel, we upload videos about pressing environmental issues in the world.
Currently, we are working on a video about water quality. We would love if you checked out our YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Every week, we work hard on our channel and strive to upload quality videos for our audience.
We think being stewards for our Earth is important, and we challenge you all listening to join the water challenge as well. Michelle has added her email if you have any questions about how to make it happen at your schools. Feel free to reach out, and we can even Zoom with your classrooms.
Absolutely amazing, guys. Thank you so much. And I would just like to highlight They use the term powerful more than once, and they are absolutely right. That is exactly what this is. Okay, so thank you guys so much again. And any questions that you might have been holding or just recently came up with, please feel free to put them in the Q&A chat, and we will be sure to pick them up now. And somebody said it is impressive work, and it absolutely is. So guys, please be sure to stay connected with the classroom to see what exactly they're doing. And does anybody have any questions now? We can open up the floor. I know I do. I will go ahead and get started. You had said, Ms. Lastinger, that your class had gotten involved with EarthEcho specifically in the summer. Was that of this year, or is this something that you will be continuing to do?
Yeah, I did the hydrosphere with the scientists in every school, the workshop this summer, and I highly recommend it. Any of those scientists in every Florida school workshops, they're amazing. And I got to partner with EarthEcho, and they taught us about the water challenge and just a lot of good curriculum. And so a lot of what we presented today is stuff that I had done, or they had given me ideas to do, and it's a really good program, the EarthEcho. So it was this summer that we did it.
Awesome. And I know, Audrey, you were also talking about when you have been going out into the Florida bodies of water, you personally get to study a lot of very similar things that I get to do as a water challenge ambassador, with the turbidity and dissolved oxygen and pH levels. So that's really interesting to see that it doesn't matter how old or young or what age level or grade level you are, that you can still make quite a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add on to that, I think the ability to sample these things with kits, I think that's really great. I think what the students have talked about, that's really awesome. And I actually have a question for your students. It sounded like some people, it sounded like you guys looked at the difference between your stream and maybe a local water body. And I was just curious if you guys saw any differences between those two.
Jasper, do you want to say? Were you guys, so it was actually this group, because of COVID, didn't get to do that field trip, but we did the Mormons River versus our creek. Do you guys remember what our creek is from when we did it in 4th grade? I think we were good to fair here. And then when we could do field trips before COVID, we went to an area that has a really pristine, and it was excellent. And we did the macros, and we did the water challenge chemistry kit, and that it was an excellent fair for the Mormons River, and then for our creek, which is surrounded by neighborhoods, kind of like what you presented. It was good to fair.
That's really cool. It's really cool to see that difference.
Yeah. So unfortunately, because 5th grade and 6th grade has been COVID restricted, they haven't gotten to do the comparison. It was something we had done with the previous years.
In Peabody School, do you guys have anything to ask Dr. Audrey, PhD student here?
You guys have any questions about the? Nobody has any questions? I mean, we really enjoyed it. It's interesting to, I guess a question I had when you were is the pond you were in, is that, because I grew up in Florida, was it why did you not want to be in that pond that day?
That particular pond, I don't know if you saw in the picture, it was like very green.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was a little bit too much algae in that pond, and having to step in the muck that's in the bottom, it just feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah. And about gators, we do actually have 2 questions. Rowan in the back.
How often do you go out?
How often do you go out into the lake?
It depends on, when I have a project going on. So I'm actually going out into the field tomorrow to, I'm deploying a DO sensor actually. So that sensor is gonna sit in the lake for a few weeks, and it's gonna measure oxygen every 5 minutes for this few weeks. So I get to do that tomorrow. And then the pictures I showed you was from a project I did earlier this year. And I got to sample a ton of lakes. And so I was in the field like almost every day for 2 or 3 weeks straight. So it depends on the project, but I love being able to do field work. Like you guys loved doing your Forest Fridays, which I love. That sounds really fun. It can be a good time until you have to get in the pond.
I have a question for you about the dissolved oxygen in the lake compared. So our creek, it's about 10 for our little creek. What do you get in the lake?
Was that 10 milligrams per liter?
Parts per million.
Okay.
So maybe
So
a different system.
So it depends. Sometimes if you have a lot of algae, yeah, you can get that much. Typically you can get more oxygen in a stream because that water's flowing, right? So you have oxygen from the atmosphere that's turning over into the water. But in lakes that don't really move very fast, it's a little different. So you can have less oxygen, but because you can have a lot of algae that are in the water column, yeah, they can put a lot of oxygen in there. So that green pond I was in has a lot of oxygen at the surface.
Okay. Madeline, did you have a question? Madeline wants to ask a question to you.
How do you fix algae blooms? Like, how do you?
Could you hear her?
I think so. How do you fix algal blooms? How do you
that's
solve
right.
that issue?
We get that sometimes in our creek too.
It's a little tricky, and I think it's different based on what kind of water body you're in. So in a lake, if it's like a managed water body, like stormwater ponds are, sometimes people will use a chemical that can kill the algae cells, or they can use, I've heard of people using dye, they'll use a dark colored dye, and that dye will block sunlight from reaching the algae. And if they can't photosynthesize, then they just die. But sometimes you can treat algal blooms using the food web. So sometimes people will add fish that can eat algae, or they can add like teeny tiny organisms that can also eat algae. So there are a few different types of approaches. Some are really successful, some are not very successful. Some can actually make the problem worse. So yeah, I would encourage you to look into the methods of how do you solve that problem. But I think one approach that people try to use is trying to reduce the problems from the watershed, right? If you have a lot of nutrients, I think you guys measured for nutrients, which is really cool. You have a lot of nutrients washing off the land and going into a lake or a stream, that can cause algal bloom. So you can treat it in the water, or you can treat it in the watershed.
And the teachers out there, that's one thing that we like to do as a class is work on the riparian zone and study the native plants. You can have that as a whole side study, and then work to repair the riparian zone in your area to make it where the nutrients don't run off into it. Any more questions, guys?
Does anyone else have anything? I know we have a few in the chat. You guys good? Okay. Well, somebody did ask, are there any of your students inspired to go into water fields because of this study?
Anybody inspired to be a scientist and study in the waters? Raise your hands. We have some hands.
Thank you.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, we do have some.
That's awesome.
I think being outside has really opened their eyes. I mean, they go outside anyway at home, but studying outside, if you can do that, teachers, it's a really powerful way to teach.
Audrey, we have a question directed to you. Are there any specific community science projects that students can get involved with?
Community science. Something that I think is cool is to do long-term monitoring. So with these water kits, you're measuring water quality parameters at one point in time. So I think that if you had the capability to measure that over time, then you could see, you could use those different things you're measuring as a way to see if things are changing. Like if you were to measure water quality in a pond and things look good, they look good, and then all of a sudden DO just drops or something, that's a good indicator of things are changing in the water. Another type of community project that I've seen done is planting native vegetation around ponds. I think Amy's class is talking about doing some planting, and I think that that's a really good approach of some community projects. Yeah, I think those two are probably my two suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another one that was directed for all speakers are, what is the number one way that we can make a difference as students? And I know for me, I'm a 10th grade student that's getting involved with EarthEcho and becoming a Water Challenge ambassador has definitely opened a lot of doors for me to get involved and to get educated with so many other, this is our platform that we can all go in and add our results for our water testing. I just went up to Brooker Creek this month and did some water testing there, and the results had changed since the month before. So we definitely love seeing improvements. And this is our database. So this is what we look at every time we go in and add new data. And all of those dots are places that people have studied and monitored. So as you can see, there are a lot in Florida. And here we can click on a specific dot and look at all of the data that has been inputted and see. So for me as a student, that is specifically what has really gotten me passionate. Here is something that's our data that would look like with our inclines and declines. We can see the specific numbers that have been inputted. Does anybody else have anything to add on how you guys think students can get involved? My biggest way was becoming a Water Challenge ambassador with EarthEcho.
I would say volunteering with local organizations that work on cleaning up local waterways, or any sort of volunteering opportunity where you get to be outside. That would be my suggestion.
100%.
Can you guys hear us still? Okay. So
Yeah.
Bo was going to suggest one way that what he likes to do.
A greener earth, as I was saying earlier, but me and my friends, it's just a really fun way. Like every Friday we work on it and we put in a lot of work to it. But it's just like a fun way to see your work actually go into the real work.
So researching ideas or actions and then voicing them somehow, whether that's with the website or videos or just posters. I think the kids really like to do that, just being a voice with a lot of just negative, climate talk, just having a voice of action is they love doing that.
There are so many creative ways to get involved and to make a difference that you don't have to be an artist to make posters. You don't have to be a public speaker to get your information out there. There's no wrong way to do it. Just find the way that works best for you. Another one before we wrap up here. Somebody had asked that they had just started the water challenge. They got so many ideas from us. That is awesome. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll through the chat here. Let's see, we answered this one. If anybody has any more, please continue to put them in. Somebody had asked, was there anything alarming that the students found when testing their tap water?
No, actually the tap water was good, but it is scary to like wait for the results. And even with the creek, when we did the, sorry, I can take my mask off. When we did the creek, initially with the E. coli, we had a scientist come out and, you know, we'd been tromping in the creek for many months, and then just to cross your fingers that the E. coli levels weren't very high, and they weren't. So that was good. So I wasn't sure how I was going to tell the parents that the levels were high when they were all in the creek. But yeah, the tap water was good. So that's good.
Okay, awesome. So I think that is just about all of them. And for all of our attendees, please be sure to stay connected with EarthEcho and scientists in every Florida school. Here are some of the socials and emails addresses that you can follow along with. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and this will be posted on a later date. And to find out any more information about all of our exciting programs, please use one of those resources. On behalf of EarthEcho International and scientists in every Florida school, thank you for joining us. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.